Hello everybody and big welcome to our cEDH TV interview and deck tech video. With me today I have MEMO, who you might have seen in some of our cEDH gameplay videos. Also, he's been playing in a lot of tournaments and he has a really good conversion rate, which means he reaches top 16 quite often. So this is a cEDH veteran of sorts. And he also hosts some coaching sessions as well for those that want to become better. Welcome!
Hey guys, happy to be here, happy to be back. Thank you for having me, Mons, and thanks for the kind words. I'm feeling honored. Today I brought my favorite deck, not my best deck, but definitely my favorite deck, Grolnok the Omnivore. It's a simic self-mill commander for 2, a green and a blue. It's a 3/3 frog. So whenever a frog you control attack, you can mill 3 cards. And whenever a permanent card is milled, it will get exiled with a crow counter. And then Grolnok allows you to play lands and cast spell from exile with crow counters. So ideally, we attack with Grolnok, we mill 3 permanents, those get exiled and we can play all 3 of them, which kind of translate to a draw 3 on each attack, which is Tutor territory.
But the big thing, as I understand, are things like Hermit Druid, mills
Exactly.
tie deck.
Exactly. If you understand what the commander is trying to do, you can and should try to abuse it as good as possible. And we have certain one-card win cons that will allow us to mill either the whole deck or at least like half the deck. Hermit Druid is like a classic self-mill strategy, and if we get to untap with Hermit Druid or give it haste and activate it, we can mill our whole library, exile all the permanents. One of them will be Thassa's Oracle, and then we can start off by playing Allosaurus Shepherd because it's uncounterable. This will allow us to cast Exploration, which is a green spell, which will also be uncounterable due to Allosaurus Shepherd. Then we can play a second land, which will be Cavern of Souls, naming either Merfolk or Wizard. And then we have a protected, uncounterable Thassa's Oracle. That should be solid.
I mean, you can also play a bunch of these mana rocks for free.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You just gain the mana, like a Lion's Eye Diamond is literally pretty good here. That's a Black Lotus.
Mm-hmm. So if you get to activate Hermit Druid or cast the other mill cards, you usually already won the game because there is usually no interaction left. But just in case there is a red blast and they didn't blast Grolnok in response to the Hermit activation, it's just good to know that you can have the cute Exploration Cavern of Souls line. So Hermit Druid is our main strategy, but we also have other ways to mill our deck. 2 of my favorite cards in the deck are Traumatize and Cut Your Losses, because whenever I play them, I just say, this is the simic ad nos, because we get access to half our library. There is some blowout potential, so if they kill Grolnok in response to the Traumatize, we will just mill half our library, but it's not the worst. We have a high density of cards, and we also play cards like Snapcaster Mage, Eternal Witness, Memory's Journey, so it's not the end of the world if that happens. But if they don't, we are usually able to win post-Traumatize or post-Cut Your Losses. Cut Your Losses costs 1 mana more than Traumatize, but has the cool upside of Casualty. So if we happen to have a creature with 2 power laying around, we get to copy Cut Your Losses, which means we will either mill 75% of our library total, or if they have a counterspell for one of them, we still might get the copy and resolve the copy of Cut Your Losses. The last combo, which is currently in the deck, is the combination of Lightning Greaves and Cephalid Illusionist. So Cephalid Illusionist is a 1/1 Cephalid Wizard, one might know from the old school Legacy Cephalid Breakfast deck, or also there are some Tymna Thrasios Hulk decks, which play Cephalid Illusionist, part of their Hulk pile. Whenever this gets targeted by a spell or ability, you mill 3 cards. So what we can do with Grolnok and the Illusionist, we can keep on equipping the Lightning Greaves to the Illusionist and then to another creature and back to the Illusionist, and we'll manually mill our deck until we find the win cons. This is quite cool if you're suspecting spot removal, because the blowout potential isn't as high as like for a Hermit Druid, where you really mill half the deck and then they kill Grolnok in response, and then you mill your whole deck, and then you're like relying on Memory's Journey to win on the next turn. So this is a more of a safer way, but it needs 1 more card, so it's a bit harder to assemble than the 1-card win cons.
Lightning Greaves is still pretty good, considering you kind of want to protect your commander. And if you give your commander
Exactly.
haste, you get card draw the same turn you cast him. And Lightning Greaves is good with Hermit Druid, so it kind of makes sense already.
Yeah, I agree. Some people are playing Shuko because it's one less mana. It's like also the old school equip thing. But I think Lightning Greaves are overall better because you play. Also, there are sometimes games where you just cast a dork, equip a dork, tap the dork for something else to cast. Yeah, that happens. So I think Lightning Greaves, although it costs one more mana, is just straight up better. Shout out to the MVP of the deck, Intuition. Very, very strong magic card in cEDH, as we all know from the Underworld Breach decks. A end-step Intuition for Underworld Breach, Savines, and Alliance Eye Diamond usually wins the game for the Underworld Breach deck. The cool part about Intuition in Grolnok is that as long as we are choosing 3 permanents and Grolnok stays in play, we will get access to all 3 of those cards, no matter which one they put in our hand. Because how Intuition is worded, those cards will be put from the deck to the graveyard, which will lead Grolnok to trigger. So there we have some very compact lines to win off of an Intuition. You already mentioned Lion's Eye Diamond, which is like a Black Lotus if it's in the exile pile, the Hermit Druid, and for instance, either the Lightning Greaves or the Concordant Crossroads. If you're a bit tight on mana, you just get access to those 3 cards and play them out and just win the game. Sometimes you can take one counter spell to stop someone else from winning and pick Lightning Greaves and Hermit Druid to win on your next turn. Could also just go for an Allosaurus Shepherd in some scenarios. Intuition is just a great card in the deck overall because
you get
how
free
Grolnok
cards.
is worded.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like triple demonic tutor at instant speed.
Yeah. 3 mana, 3 cards, instant speed. What more can you...
Exactly.
Only permanents though.
Yeah. But how the deck is built, we are just trying to play good permanents that help us to achieve our game plan. Some I want to shout out here are especially Snapcaster Mage, which has proven to be very good, especially post-mill. You can flashback in Neo form, or you could also go for another draw with a Gitaxian Pro. Also a card which has been cool is Malevolent Hermit, the other Hermit we are playing. This is just a great card overall because it's a permanent, and that means we have, when we attack with Grolnok and this gets exiled, we basically have access to a counter spell on a permanent, and that's just really what we like. Another cool card is Brazen Borrower because it's removal on a permanent at instant speed. We are indeed allowed to mill and exile Brazen Borrower to Grolnok and then cast the adventure side of the card, because when it gets exiled it will just check what it is, and when it gets exiled it's a permanent, but you are allowed to play the adventure side, although that's an instant.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's quite cool. I got it confirmed from a judge, so it's proof. Sylvan Safekeeper, which is great with Hermit Druid, always a good addition if you play those creature strategies, which you want to protect Grolnok, you want to protect the Hermit Druid for one turn.
I think this gotta be a big upgrade. Because this is permanent.
Yes.
It's like having Final of the Station.
Yeah, I was hesitant first because we can't find the Hermit Druid, because Hermit Druid is a human, but it's still good enough. We find so many other cards. We find the Allosaurus Shepherd, we can find the Cephalid Illusionist, we find Phantasmal Image to copy a Dockside. There are scenarios where you can find your Thassa's Oracle with this, and then with the ETB on the stack, activate the Hermit Druid, and this is a way of winning if you don't have Grolnok in play. So it's just a good tutor overall, and we are only in 2 colors. So we really want to play all the good tutors we can get. Another recent addition we put in is the One Ring. People have been talking about the One Ring for the last couple of weeks because it seems so strong in most of the decks. And this is also a deck that likes it because it's just card advantage on a permanent.
I think that the reason a lot of people are talking about the One Ring is that it's it's extremely good in other formats. In cEDH, it's just a very good card, but it's not as equally good. But it's still a good card, but Rhystic Study is better than this, I think, still. It is,
and we will always play Rhystic Study instead of the One Ring, but not been around for a very long time, so it needs more testing. It's obviously 4 mana is a lot, and we are more of a turbo deck, right? Most of the Hermit decks try to do the Hermit thing, and the One Ring really doesn't do anything. But sometimes we're just not able to win just yet, and the One Ring, just if it sticks around, just helps us to get the card advantage we want. So just a good mid-range card. But I can definitely see this getting cut for like a faster piece. But as of now, I really want to give it a try. And from what I've seen, I've been pleasantly surprised. Also, the protection from everything. This is very relevant. I've like witnessed multiple games where other people weren't able to win because people had protection from everything. There was a 12-12 orc army and they couldn't kill them. There was a Tibet with a time thief who couldn't do the loop because two of their opponents had the protection from everything. So they only could attack one, and they had 4 attack steps before the only player without protection died to commander damage. Yeah, and that's just, it's real. So I think it's good enough in Simic.
I don't think it's an auto include, but I definitely think it's definitely a card to consider if you're looking to fix something. Because now we actually get to another point. Have you actually brought this commander to any of your tournaments? We're talking to a tournament commander here with some experience. So what do you think about this? What's the power?
I haven't. So like I said, I love the deck. It's my favorite deck. It's one of my first decks I really like brewed on my own and where I like really dived into it. It's not like Nagila where others did most of the work and I just like tuned it and like decided on which like the last 5 cards are. This is like my homebrew. This is like my baby. But I have to admit it's a glass cannon. Dranet is very, very bad for the deck because we can't cast the spells from exile. We get to play the lands, which isn't the worst, but still Dranet hurts. Dorothy Voidwalker is also a card which is very prevalent in the format nowadays, which is terrible for us because if we attack, the cards will go to exile under Dorothy. So we basically don't attack.
You don't have a choice. It will trigger.
Those are cards are very bad, and those are cards who see a lot of play in tournaments. As of now, I'm not confident in bringing this to a tournament unless I'm super sure about the meta being like not as Dranet and Dorothy heavy. In addition to that, the recent printing of Orcish Bowmasters also hurts the deck because Hermit Druid is a 1/1. Sylvan Safekeeper, the Dorks, Cephalid Illusionist, there's just too many 1/1s which die. I think the deck is very fun. It sparks joy to play it. It's a cool Hermit Druid deck. So if you ever like want to play a cool Hermit Druid deck, if you like self-milling, if you like Simic, this is a very cool deck to play. But if you just like to go to a tournament or like win most of your games, want like explosive dockside plays, this is just not it. I sadly have to admit, but that's how it is.
Well, it's good to hear that from someone who's playing it quite often, wanted to be good, and explaining why it's got problems.
It's definitely not top tier, but it's a lot of fun. There are other decks which are like way more powerful, but are very boring to play in my opinion. It depends on your goals. What are your goals? Yeah. And if you're looking for a cool deck that sparks joy and is fun to play, does the Hermit Druid thing, that might be the deck for you.
It feels like every commander or every deck that is very commander orientated right now is struggling a bit because the cards in the 99 usually makes a better combo compared to a commander.
Yeah. 1 or 2 exceptions. I think Tibet is an exception.
Yes.
Because Tibet has like Tibet plus Time Thief is like peanut butter and jelly. It just fits so well together. And there's also like Atraxa, which was a bit prevalent. There's like some skilled pilots out there, but I would generally agree with you. I think also like the effect.
I think Atraxa
I think you're right.
I think Atraxa is a good example of a commander that is simply there for colors and also a value effect. Like sure, you do have the infinite loop of food chain, but the big thing there is still that you're gaining a lot of value on that ETB.
Yeah, exactly like the same scenario, right? It's a big creature with a good like value, and then you have like the compact one-card win con in form of food chain, similar to Tivit, just a bit slower in my opinion, but not necessarily worse.
I mean, Ayala is another example of like a commander-oriented deck that actually works, but she comes into play quite fast. And she has very efficient one-card combos to make it flow perfectly. Like this has one-card combos too, but hers are better together with 5 colors.
And there has been like plenty of times where I went into my Nagila turn, I casted a silence, and they sorted my Nagila in response, and then I just demonic tutored for Underworld Breach or Ad Nauseam. And in Grolnok, if they kill your Grolnok in response to, I don't know, a Dosan or anything else, you just can't win that easily. And like I think that's also the strength of Nagila to just pivot into another win con. There's one thing I'd like to touch on, what do you do if they Praetor's Grasp your Oracle? Because as you can see, we do not play an infinite mana combo on the first side, and we also do not play Jace. We did that years ago, but then we found cool synergies within the deck that allow us to not rely on Jace, so we got to cut Jace. I will just briefly touch on it. You can read it in the primer. Basically, what you do after you milk your whole deck and you don't have access to win with Thassa's Oracle, what
this
you can
happen,
do is...
by the way, quite often because people
Exactly.
wanna use your Thassa's to win themselves.
Exactly. So either they Praetor's Grasp or they do like brain freeze Dorothy shenanigans, or like there's a wheel happening, Leyline of the Void, all kinds of stuff can happen to your Thassa's Oracle. What you can do, you can mill your library, and when you have Grolnok in play, you can cast your Endurance after you used your Lion's Eye Diamond and your Lotus Petal. Then you just cast your Endurance, put Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal back in the deck, and then you can use your Phantasmal Image to copy your Endurance, and with the copy TB on this deck, you can use your Seal of Removal to target your Fimage, put Fimage back into the deck, and then you have infinite mana, and then you have infinite ETBs. You can get your Finale and kill the table with Finale, or you can mill them, Winds of Rebuke. You can make infinite Swans. And we found that line like on the Grolnok server, and we are pretty happy because it allows us to play one bad card less, and that's like Jace, Wild of Mysteries is just a bad magic card. And the other cards like Endurance, Phantasmal Image, Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petals are all good cards we are playing anyway. So Seal of Removal is like the weakest of those sort, but it's still a removal on a permanent.
Why are you playing this one?
We are on a Hermit Druid mana base, so we are not allowed to play more than one basic. That's why we played Minamo, and now I'm quite happy because we played the One Ring, and maybe it hasn't come up yet, but maybe we untap the ring one day and tap it again.
Legit, that's the only thing I need to hear.
It's cute.
And I'm guessing this is finding your Lightning Greaves, usually.
Yeah. This is also like a tutor on a permanent. You could play Spellseeker in this slot. It's not like worse, because Spellseeker can find you, not your intuition, but like Merchant Scroll or Mystical Tutor for intuition. Spellseeker can also find you like Neoform. Some decks play the Brain Freeze as a value spell to be like, oh cool, how many spells got cast this turn? Oh, like 5. Okay, cool. Put Brain Freeze on this deck and then mill like 18 cards, which all get exiled with Grolnok. If you play like more like the Brain Freeze stuff, you could probably play Spellseeker. I think Tribute Mage is cool to find the Lightning Greaves because they aren't very easy to tutor.
Yeah.
And the Cephalid Illusionist, you can tutor that with Eldritch, Neoform, Ikoria, Finale. So it's easier to find the Illusionist, but it's not as easy to find the Greaves. That's why I want to play at least one artifact tutor.
Why aren't you playing Brain Freeze? It's not in your list.
Yeah, I tested it. Whenever I had it, didn't do the thing. Others talked to me about it, oh, I milled 21 cards with Brain Freeze. Whenever I tested it, it didn't do the thing. But what I try to do regularly is test those cards. Spell. I'm on and off on Spellseeker. I'm like, okay, this has to be good enough. And then other weeks I'm like, this is so stupid. Spellseeker for Merchant Scroll for intuition. It's 8 mana. This never works. But then, I don't know. Those are a couple of cards you could probably, I wouldn't blame anyone they play them, but for me they haven't performed as well as for others.
I
but
see
it's
what you're kind of saying,
wrong.
because every card have a ceiling and a floor basically.
Mm-hmm.
And how often are you getting the ceiling, and then how often are you getting the floor, and how down low is the floor and how big is the ceiling. However, I might actually disagree with you, because in the end the floor is basically milling 3 cards for 2 mana instant speed, which is drawing 3 cards for you. And it should always be milling 6 cards at an absolute minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this. Yeah. I'm skeptic with your experience, but I'm not gonna say you're wrong.
I agree, and I respect your opinion, and I can definitely, I don't know, maybe in 4 or 6 weeks I'm back on Brain Freeze. I'm just trying to focus on the Hermit Druid thing, or find the other 1 or 2 card combos to mill everything, or at least half the library. I'm not too interested in a value Brain Freeze. And when I evaluate Brain Freeze, it just doesn't mill half the library, or doesn't mill the whole library, but it definitely has its spot. So if you like I have a slot, this is otherworldly gaze. Probably you could play it in that slot. I cut Brainstorm for otherworldly gaze due to the flashback ability. It's like a cute way to use it again.
Yeah.
Otherworldly gaze just helps you to regain some value if that happens too often. But it's like definitely not wrong to play Brain Freeze in that slot.
Yeah. I have to agree with something here though regarding Brain Freeze and mid-range. And in general, cEDH is kind of focused on being fast and very proactive right now. So sitting in small value towning isn't really working out that much. It's much better to be pedal on the metal and try to go for it fast, sneak wins, interact when someone is going for it, and then go for it yourself with a protection like Defense Grid.
Yeah, there are other decks which are better than doing that, but we really tried to make like a mid-range version of Grolnok, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
I don't think if you want to like do mid-range simic stuff, just play Kinnan, because Kinnan is like so adaptive. You can go fast, but you can also like flip into Void Winner and Seedborn use. Whenever I tried to do that in Grolnok, it just never worked out, and I just came to the conclusion this is just a fast Hermit deck. Just turn 1, turn 2 Grolnok, turn 3 try to mill yourself, or turn 4 the latest, because on turn 5, 6, 7 the Trussius Tymna decks, the Chrome decks, they will just outdraw you and will most likely stop your one trick you have.
That's very interesting to hear, because when you're reading Grolnok, it's attack, draw 3 cards, milling draws cards. Like, this should be an extreme mid-range commander when you're reading it. Yeah. Why isn't it?
So, because the payoffs just aren't that good, right? So you flip a bunch of mana and you flip tutors, but we have like only Snapcaster Mage, Brazen Borrower, Malevolent Hermit, and then we have like some enchantments, but it's not like Tymna Crom, who like attack, draw 3, play a land, play a mana rock, pass, and they have a full grip of 6 or 7 cards. Everything you flip will be in exile. Everything you exile will be permanent based. We have one aura that has flash, and then we have like the Brazen Borrower and the Snapcaster, but it's all public information to everyone. So it's not like we can sculpt a threatening hand and try to win with a Final Fortune effect or like win out of nowhere. Everything is very open. Yeah. So it's not the worst to just keep attacking with Grolnok, but you have to present your win at some point, because everyone like sees what you're doing, and this will not come as a surprise. So I'd rather try to do it fast and hope I go through with it than maybe have a miserable win attempt on turn 7 or 8.
Very key and important actually, because when you're playing mid-range, you don't want to become the target, so to say. And in this case, you do become the target if you have the value things in exile with Grolnok.
Yep, exactly.
It's kind of strange, because that's like one of the biggest reasons why I thought Ceesay had a lower power level. Everything was calculatable. You could know exactly what Ceesay was going to do.
Yeah.
Well, Mimo, big thank you for coming here and talking about your favorite deck, Grolnok the Omnivore.
Thanks for having me, Mon. It's been a pleasure. I love talking about the deck and other stuff, as you noticed.
Yes. If people want to ask questions about this, or if people actually want to have a coaching session with you, is there a possibility of reaching out to you somehow? What's your Discord?
Yes. So the easiest way is to message me on Discord, link in the description below. Also, you can just find me on Twitter, also link in the description below. Just hit me up, and you could also just comment on my mock street list if you want to, also in the description below.
Yes.
And I will reach out to you. If you have any questions, hit me up. I love to talk about Grolnok all day. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Thank you so much for watching. Take care, guys. See you in the next video.
Bye.